I put an offer on a 6-acre property and didn't even know if I could build on it. It's feasibility time and the stakes are high. 28 days to decide if I close or if I walk away. If you're new here, this is 6-Acre Solo. I'm a 50-year-old woman with a goal to build a homestead in the Pacific Northwest this year. I'm doing it solo, aka without supervision. In my previous videos, we went through the challenging adventure of finding a suitable property. Now it's time for the offer. Making the offer was unexpectedly easy. I was walking my land, I called the agent while standing on the property, offered $10K under asking. Seller countered, I accepted the counter, done. Less than 24 hours. This is where the easy bit stopped. What came next was a tight timeline of the feasibility period, trying to get many questions answered in an environment where answers do not come quickly, easily, or cheaply. Can I build what I want on this land? That's the question I needed to answer during the feasibility period. Answering that required answers to many other questions. A home permit requires potable water. Can I get it? It requires septic. Can I get it? It requires county approval for the land for building. Can I get it? It requires a clean survey. It requires residential zoning. 28 days is not a lot of time, but I'm pretty organized. It seemed like I should be able to get these answers pretty easily. Ha! My eternal optimism strikes again. I started with the county. I knew from my agent that the county had a reputation of being, let's say, difficult. So I started there first. According to their website, the very first thing that you have to do before you can get an approval to build a home is to complete a site development review. It's like a pre-permit where they assess your land for issues that could interfere with home building. I think it's a good idea. You get their opinion before you invest in the land. I filled out the forms and paid the fee and even hired an expediter to help assure nothing got held up. I thought I was being clever. This little form could tell me right away if there were issues. Yeah. No. The county took 8 weeks to complete it. 8 weeks obviously far exceeded my 28 days. So while it was a step forward in the things that eventually had to get done anyway, it was no help at all with respect to the closing decisions. Everyone says don't buy land without a survey. A very logical recommendation. This property didn't have one. While I walked the land and was pretty sure there were no border issues, I still wanted the official confirmation the boundaries were clear. So I started making the calls to get the survey done early in the feasibility period. Alas, it was not to be, at least not during feasibility. I think the surveyors may not be too excited about doing surveys in the winter in the Pacific Northwest in wooded areas that are 6 acres or more. It took a long time to find anyone to do it. I heard reasons such as they were too old, it was too far away, etc. So there was to be no survey to inform my closing. I did eventually get it done. The final bill for that 6-acre sanity check, $3,900, plus $423.50 recording fee for the county. Ouch. Ah, septic. Such a critical question. Happily, the owner had had perk tests done before I made the offer. I got in touch with the professional that did them, and she responded the next day. The news wasn't great. The soil came back as a type 4, meaning an above-ground system would be required. I did some immediate Googling, and here was where the big worries really started. The above-ground systems required to support a type 4 soil were a lot of money. This was probably the first moment that I started thinking about walking away. I started doing some poop math. I'm the only one using this land. If I stay for maybe 35 years, that's 12,775 poops, which means if I pay 40 grand for this system, I'm basically paying $3.13 per poop. But spread out over 35 years, that's maybe not too bad. It still seems like a lot. Ironically, the item that involved paying back taxes turned out to be the best news I got during the feasibility period. The land was zoned forestry. To build a home, I had to get it rezoned, which required paying back taxes. Now, at this point, the notion of paying all the back taxes did not sound anything but scary. But after a few email exchanges with the county, the math worked out. It wasn't nearly as much as I thought it was going to be. And even better, finally, a green checkbox for my feasibility task. With closing time nearly upon me, I still had several significant unknowns. Lack of answers is something that I find very frustrating. In order to make a decision to go forward or walk away, I considered each remaining item and their possible impact one at a time. First, septic. I ran the numbers on the most expensive system. Even in the worst case, I could absorb the cost by making trade-offs in the form of delays on a few things that I had planned for the home build. Risk known mostly and trade-off acceptable. Second, could I actually build here? After walking the land and doing a lot of research, I felt confident that there probably were no true deal breakers with respect to things like land incursions or potential hard no's with zoning issues. Risk low, therefore acceptable. Third, boundaries. There was no survey. So in this case, I did walk the property using a handheld GPS tool to map where the lines likely were. Nothing unexpected showed up. Risk of incursions or other boundary issues was very low and therefore acceptable. And then there was the one I couldn't really fully solve: water. I had learned that despite the Pacific Northwest being the land of endless water, water via wells is actually quite a big problem in this area. And this one was a fundamental blocker to building. If I dug a well and it didn't strike water, there really was no plan B other than trying repeatedly to find water, which might never happen. This was really a hard one to resolve. It was also one that I knew would be present on any property that I looked at without a well. What I knew was this: 2 properties near my property had successful wells. They were deep and expensive, but they worked. If I didn't strike water, I could potentially put the property on the market, likely at a loss, and try to find something else again. I didn't like this at all, but realized unless I only purchase properties with wells, this risk in this area would always be present. It was a moderate risk, but I decided to accept it with fingers and toes crossed. At that point, every known risk was either resolved or deemed acceptable. So I made my decision. I expected closing to feel big. It didn't. I signed everything online a few days before the closing day, wired the money the night before, and on closing days, nothing. Just an email. We're done. And a text from my agent. Congratulations. Honestly, I was a little worried at first. I wondered if I had been taken by one of those property scams. But all was well, and I legitimately was now an owner of 6.2 acres on the Olympic Peninsula. And while I was now a landowner, I still had a fair amount of uncomfortable, potentially very expensive unknowns. It was exciting and uncomfortable, but I was ready for the next steps. In the next video, I'll show you how I tried to accelerate the home building thing via home design that I tried to start myself. If you're interested in buying rural land, building a homestead, or just watching a silly someone figure it out step by step, sometimes not correctly, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching. I'm Margot, and this is 6 Acre Solo.